Hello guys, I'm going to start to produce these flipped lectures so that y'all can watch these at home, and so we'll be ready to do what we need to do in class to explore these topics a little bit more thoroughly and work out any questions you have on the material. For today's, we're going to be using this PowerPoint that was created by a colleague at my first school. So it's not that Mr. Johnson, it's another Mr. Johnson. It's going to focus on immigration and urbanization, so we're going to take a look at those immigrant groups coming in primarily to Ellis Island and the growth of the city, both good and bad. Right? So make sure that you are listening to this and not necessarily taking notes, but making sure that you're studying this for your quizzes and your tests, along with the graphic organizers that I've also passed out. These are objectives from the old standards. So they don't really connect with the new standards, but they're there anyway. So we're going to try to evaluate the influence of immigration and the rapid industrialization in urban life. We're going from a time period where 60% of Americans lived on farms in the 1860s to now we're getting into the 1920s, where that's actually going to flip. 70% of people are going to be living in cities, and only the rest, the 30% more or less, are living on those farms. And these are the key terms all in this presentation, from the elevator all the way down to nativism. A lot of these are technology and people that we'll be going over. Let's go ahead and get into it. Right. So immigration, urbanization, this is a chart. Right. If you take a look at it, it's 1870 population of cities to 1900 population. Right. Couple things that you want to see when you're looking at these population charts, especially if they give you a percent increase, check that out first. All right, we've got some explosive growth over 30 years. Seattle, 21,000%, going from a town less than the size of Zebulon, right, all the way to 237,000 people. City on the scale of Raleigh, 21,000% increase in 30 years. Huge boom in population. Right. Same thing with LA, 1,689%. Right. New York, even though it is only increasing 132%, it's going from a city of 1.4 million to 3.4 million, and it's going to increase even more to a city of about 6 million by 1920. Right. Philadelphia is actually losing population. Rising tide of immigration, we're going to have the difference between old immigration and new immigration. Old immigration, right, think England and think about the surrounding countries, right, Northern and Western Europe. So those are going to be England, France, Germany, Ireland, and the Nordic areas. The languages are very similar. Right? German is the base language of English, so a lot of the terms are similar. Probably most well known is like water and Wasser. Right? They're the same idea of water and Wasser. Right? So the languages are very similar. The religion is very similar. Most of the people moving from Germany are Protestants. Same thing in Sweden, Norway. The people who are moving to the United States from France are primarily Protestants as well. Right. The oddball here is going to be Ireland. Right. This is why the Irish are going to face so much discrimination when they first move here, is that they are Catholics, and there's a distrust of that. This old immigration is between the 1830s and the 1860s, so essentially before the Civil War. Right. What we're focusing on now is the switch to new immigration. Right. And there's going to be old immigration from Africa, but that is forced immigration. That's the slave trade. New immigration. Right? These people are going to be completely different as far as customs, cultures, religions, languages. Right? So we have Italy, right? Catholic, right? Speaking Italian, a Romantic language. So there's going to be a little bit of distance there, not as much kind of looked down upon as with other new immigrant groups, but they are going to be very inclusive. They're going to settle in places like Little Italy, and they're going to retain a lot of their old culture. However, they are going to really quickly blend in as far as speaking English. They're an immigrant group that really wants their children to speak English. So there's not going to be a hit on the American language. They're not going to change a lot of words. They're not going to influence the American language other than definitely their food culture. Right? Italian food is one of the most well-known food cultures in the United States now. Right? So pizza, spaghetti, meatballs, we owe that to the new immigration. Greece, right? Speaking Greek, they're Eastern Orthodox. Different religion than either Catholic or Protestant. Right? Russia, the people moving from Russian primarily are Russian Jews, are trying to get away from the pogroms, and pogroms are going to be those violent time periods in Russia in which Jewish people are being killed and discriminated against, so they got to get out of there. Also, the area that will become Poland in this area is also going to be a mainstay of immigration to the United States. Hungary and Austria, and also China, right, and Japan are going to be big. Korea as well. We're going to be big new immigrant sources of new population sources for immigration. Now, these are completely different. They look different. They sound different. Their language is completely different, not only in the sounds that are made, but also in the way it's written. Be very looked down upon when they move to the United States and discriminated against to where immigration is going to be stopped from China completely. Why they're coming, job opportunities, trying to get away from the anti-Semitism in Russia, or hatred against Jewish people, taking advantage of things like the Homestead Act, where land is being given away. You can start over. A lot of these people that are moving are farmers. Right? So if they can set up a farm here in America, that's going to be the best thing for them. But if not, they will take the factory work. A lot of it is just about food, putting bread on the table. It's getting hard in Europe. Land is limited, and also they have problems as far as the economy going downhill. Right? The journey. Cramped ocean liners, you're traveling in steerage, which is the bottom of the boats, with all the things that steer the ships and the boilers, so it's hot, cramped, noisy. If the ship is starting to take on water, you're the last ones out. Dishonest captains who might take you, they say they're taking you to the United States, but they might drop you off in Ireland, you might drop you off in Cuba, and then you're going to have to save up 2 more years' salary to get that trip. So it's probably going to take you about 5 to 10 years to save up that money to get a ticket again. And you're really going into the unknown. You're settling in a new place with a new culture, with a new language. You don't know hardly anybody there, so it is a brave new world. Once you got there, right, in the east over here, New York City, we have first Castle Garden and then Ellis Island. That's going to kind of be the immigration port in which all immigrants are coming through. And then here in California, there's Angel Island. Right. Things that you're going to have to overcome going through Ellis Island. You have physical exams. They're checking you, 5-second medical exams, checking you for any infectious diseases, any insanity, medical or mental illnesses, and just anything that can endanger the population of North America. If you are found to have an infectious disease that can be cured, you'd be going into quarantine until you were cured. If not, you were sent back home. Right? Name changes. Polish names. I think the example I gave in class is spelling the name Krzyzewski. Very foreign name. Think out of 70 people, no one got that name right. So Ellis Island, they're going to change people's names and how they spell them too. There's a big culture shock when you get over here to see these tall buildings and people speaking a language you're not familiar with, doing things you're not familiar with, playing games you're not familiar with, living in tight corners with everybody. These are the 5-second medical exams, checking your eyes, checking your ears, checking your nose, a pool of doctors, and away you go. Most people are traveling with everything that they have with them. Everything else that they had is left in the old country to either be used by other family members or just abandoned. Most people are coming, they're sending their husbands first to get established, and then the rest of the family will come back later. And these are the long lines that you're basically standing in all day. You're going from one interview to another, getting inspected, then going to another interview, and then finally, if everything checks out, you'll board a ferry to the United States. Meanwhile, you get to see the Statue of Liberty, which has just been given to the United States from France as kind of our birthday present, our 100th birthday present. All right, it becomes a symbol of why people are moving to America, and it really comes from this poem. All right, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. So Emma Lazarus is really setting up a creed that this is a nation of exiles. This is a nation of immigrants where you can improve your life if you work hard enough. Right. Angel Island is a much different story. It's out west, it's in California. Most of the immigrants coming into Angel Island are from China and Japan. These are going to be Japanese picture brides. They're coming to America. Hopefully they're going to find their husbands in California. A lot of times they're going to be turned back, and a lot of times any Japanese or Chinese immigrants are going to stay at Angel Island for extended periods of time, 3 to 6 months. They're being treated like they're prisoners, that they've committed a crime, and a lot of times they're going to be deported, sent back home. Ellis Island is kind of seen as more of an open gate, almost like a welcoming center. Angel Island is seen as closed gate. We don't want you here, but we'll accept some, but we're really trying to hold that door closed. And that door is going to shut to vast majority of these immigrants with the Chinese Exclusion Act in 1882. No more Chinese immigration at all. And a lot of this has to do with the growth of nativism in California. The Chinese had done better at the gold rush because they were more patient, because they couldn't go home as easily. They've worked on the Transcontinental Railroad, and they've become businessmen, especially with laundromats. So there's been this big backlash against the Chinese that this isn't their land, they shouldn't be here, they should go back. Thomas Nast, who draws this political cartoon, in the back, one of the people that he believes is creating all this hate are the Irish immigrants. He usually draws Irish immigrants looking like almost apish, almost like a gorilla, right? And he believes that they are the ones that are going against the Chinese. We're also going to have an agreement with the Japanese government that we're going to allow Japanese immigrants who are in the United States to go to public schools. They have to stop immigration on their side. And we're not going to go to that political cartoon. We're going to move right into the new ethnic neighborhoods. Once they're here, these immigrant groups are going to interact with American culture. And there's two major theories, and we'll talk about a third one. Melting pot. Take two things that can melt down, like chocolate and cream cheese. Right? You stir them up and you heat it. Right? You can't take the cream cheese out of the chocolate anymore. And you can't take the chocolate out of the cream cheese. It's been created something new, something like a creamy chocolate cheese. All right? That's the melting pot theory, that these Irish immigrants and Italian immigrants and Mexican immigrants and Russian immigrants all become something new, have an American culture that is completely distinct and changed, and they're changed by it, and they change American culture too. So there's one American culture. With the salad bowl concept, it's different. I mean, if you create a salad, you can still pick out the lettuce. It hasn't changed. It's been just chopped up and kind of jumbled together. You can take the tomato out. Right, so this is saying that these immigrant groups are coming into the United States and they're mixing, but they're not changing their culture. They're still going to be Mexican. They're still going to be Italian. They're still going to be Russian. They're going to retain so much of their old ancestry, their old culture, that they can pick up and go back home and function completely the same. There is a third theory that isn't up here called the ethnic stew, that the immigrant culture has changed a little bit, but they still retain most of their old culture, so you can distinctly tell a Chinese American or an Irish American. But a Chinese American or an Irish American doesn't act exactly the same way that an Irish person or a Chinese person would. Their culture has been changed around the edges a little bit, but hasn't been completely lost. Thinking about a stew, right? You put a potato in the stew, it stews down. You can tell it's a potato, but comparing it to a raw potato, there's no comparison there. It's been changed. It's become softer. Right. examples of this kind of pluralism where they're retaining a lot of the culture is in Chinatown, San Francisco, LA, New